I mean, not to say that Russell Wilson is not that important, but I mean that's a lot. $25 million, and I get it that you want to be every time somebody signs, you want to be that next highest paid guy. But I don't really know if I walk away. You know, if Seattle came back and said, okay, 22, I don't know if I'd be like, no, 25. And all I'm making is 1.5. I really don't know about that. And I'm dating Sierra. I don't know about that, brother. Going to be very interesting. All right, so coming up, and this is Sports Kings Live being heard via Spreaker.com, also iHeartRadio.com. You can reach us via social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr at Sports Kings Live. You can also send us an email, sportskingslive@gmail.com. Monday, we had the opportunity to catch up with Atlanta Falcons beat writer D. Orlando Ledbetter to talk about the Atlanta Falcons as they prepare for tomorrow's opening of training camp at Flowery Branch. And so, trying to make sure that that I tackle all of the teams in the NFC South because, this show, while, we broadcast out of Atlanta, we know we touch much, much more than just Atlanta, Georgia. So Rick Stroud, a good friend of the show, was good enough, kind enough, and knowledgeable enough to join us tonight to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is the beat writer for the Bucs for the Tampa Bay Times. And so, of course, we like to welcome our good friend Rick to the show. And Rick, thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem, man. So I guess I'll start right here. Let's go back to last year. The team finished with a record of 2-14. Definitely not what the Glazer family or anybody was looking for. Nobody's looking for a record like that. But Lovie Smith, what are his expectations this year to get this team moving in a different direction?
Well, I think what happened is when you go 2-14, what comes with that is the number one overall pick. So for all the suffering they went through, they were able to be in position to draft Jameis Winston, who they hope and believe is going to be a franchise quarterback. And so, much of their hope rides on him and some other young players like Donovan Smith and Ali Marpet, Kenny Bell, some of the guys they got in the draft, as well as those they have coming back, and just the familiarity that Lovie Smith will have with his football team, him and Jason Light. Something happened last year that was unforeseen, and frankly, it was a big part of their demise, and that is that Jeff Tedford, their offensive coordinator, had a heart procedure in the preseason, and he never came back from that, and they weren't prepared to move forward without him. They did the best they could, but without an offensive coordinator, someone that's a proven play caller, it was a real struggle. So Josh McCown is gone now. They have a new quarterback, some new young players to go with Mike Evans and Benson Jackson and Austin Safarian Jenkins and some weapons, and they're hoping that in time as Jameis develops, that this will be, a situation where the arrow will be pointed up.
Now, for everything great that Jameis Winston did for the Florida State University Seminoles, is this a situation where they brought him in with the anticipation of letting him grow into the position, or was he brought in in hopes that he would be able to take the Bucs from this 2-14 record to possibly over 500 into the playoffs?
Well, you don't know what's going to happen record-wise. I mean, there's a lot of variables with that, but certainly, they're committed to him as their starter, and they know they're going to ride the wave with him a little bit. I mean, this is a guy that threw a lot of interceptions in his last year at Florida State. He didn't have Kelvin Benjamin and some of the weapons he had as a freshman, but they only lost one game there, and it's going to be a process with a pocket passer, a guy that's kind of a gunslinger. They know they're going to have some bad plays, but they also like the fact that he comes right back and isn't afraid to fire it in there and make some good plays. So I think they have to sort of ride it out with him, good or bad, and hope that, they're banking a lot on offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter, who comes over from the Falcons, to help develop this kid along with quarterbacks coach Mike Bajakian, and that the young offensive lineman will grow with Jameis around him, and in 2 or 3 years, these guys will iron out the mistakes and start to play really good football. But it's hard to predict, as you know, in the NFC South. There's a lot of teams that can go worst to first. I wouldn't expect that this year with the Bucs, but certainly they're not putting any limitations on themselves.
Absolutely. This is Sports Kings Live. Rick Stroud joins the show. He is the beat writer for the Tampa Bay Bucs with the Tampa Bay Times. The Bucs celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, and I see they have a slogan for this year: "Siege the Day," which I guess is pirate talk. And you know, I know that the fan base down there in Tampa. I know y'all have a great fan base down there, but what is the excitement like, or what was the excitement like when Jameis Winston was actually selected to become a member of the Buccaneers?
Well, you know, there's a lot of Florida State fans in the Bay Area. There's also a lot of Gator fans, but that aside, you know, first-round picks in the draft because of the off-field problems that were well chronicled, and people in this area are very familiar with that. I think overall the Bucs fans are energized by it. I think their players are energized by it. I think that's sort of what this league is. It's a coach quarterback league. And when you see the success that he had as a 20-year-old, you know, winning a national championship, a Heisman Trophy, playing in the semifinals again last year, just losing one game in 2 years, and the sort of personality that he is. And for all his off-field problems that he had at Florida State, the one thing that the Bucs are comfortable with is that football means a lot to Jameis. He's a football junkie. He's a guy that's going to, you know, put in the work, be the last one to leave, understand, you know, in advance of a lot of rookie quarterbacks because he played in a pro system. He can read defenses. He can, you know, check protections. He can do a lot of those things, and he can play under center, which is something that a lot of rookie quarterbacks can't do coming out of college these days. So they have a lot of hopes for him, and I think fans are going to be patient to some degree. But you know, nothing energizes a team like a franchise quarterback.
Absolutely. I mean, because right here in Atlanta, I mean, you know, we went through a debacle with the whole Mike Vick situation, and then, you know, we had that gap where it was like Byron Leftwich and Joey Harrington, and, you know, it was just like a group of, you know, quarterbacks that no longer were even serviceable, and then they bridged the gap. You know, we were able to bring in Matt Ryan. And then a couple of years ago, as you mentioned, we had Dirk Cutter, who did some great things right here in Atlanta. We actually went to the NFC Championship game with Dirk Cutter as our OC. So you got to pick up in Dirk Cutter. And, you know, the way that things went with him and Matt Ryan, you know, as a Falcon fan, I don't want to see that happen with Tampa Bay. But as a football fan, like, I would love to see Jameis progress the way that Matt Ryan has. You know, talking about Jameis, and you mentioned those wide receivers of Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, Kenny Bell. How big of a year could this be for their wide receiver core?
Well, they're good, and you know, the thing is that they're big targets. They have, you know, very wide catching ratios. I mean, these guys are all 6'5", and when Jameis had Kelvin Benjamin, who was that size and now playing very well, 1,000-yard receiver as a rookie in Carolina. He had a lot of confidence in him, and he would throw the ball to Kelvin in tight spots and in places where a tall receiver can go get it. And you know, last year that's kind of what their offense was reduced to, trying to run ISOs with Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson. So I mean, I think, you know, you had Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who only played 8 games. He was injured. He's another 6'5" target. This is a big wide receiver group. They lack a little speed. I think, you know, Kenny Bell, who's a rookie from Nebraska, will bring some of that to them. They still have Lewis Murphy Jr. So they feel like they're pretty deep in the wide receiver core. And even though Vincent Jackson is 32 years old, he keeps churning out 1,000-yard seasons, and he's an intangible leader for them as well. So I think that's the strength of their team, the strength of their offense. But at some point, they're going to have to get back to developing a running game so that this team can be balanced and it won't all be on Jameis's shoulders. Okay,
now let's talk about that. Now, just a couple of years ago, it was all about Doug Martin out of Boise State. Doug Martin came on like gangbusters for the Tampa Bay Bucs. And then I want to say Doug Martin went down, and in comes Bobby Rainey, who then, lights it up again. So I know you guys also have the rookie running back in Dominique Brown. But from everything that I'm reading, like, Doug Martin is barely holding on to this starting job. How true is that?
Well, I mean, I think it's true because his last 2 seasons, as you mentioned, have been bad, and primarily because of injuries. He was hurt right there in Atlanta 2 years ago. Had a torn labrum in his shoulder after making a catch in the Georgia Dome. And and then last year the injuries got him again. He had some hamstring problems. He's had knee problems. He seems to be healthy again, and I think the one thing that might motivate him, I don't think you can fake 1,454 yards, nearly 500 yards receiving as Doug did. But when he was running that way, at the time, Josh Freeman was the quarterback, and at least Josh would threaten people with the deep ball. Those safeties couldn't come downhill as fast. They probably had a better offensive line, which is something that they need as well. But they did not pick up Doug's fifth-year option. He was a first-round pick. And so he's going to be a free agent next year, and he could end up re-signing here, but I think he'll be motivated. He looks to be in great shape, and they really do need him to return to form because, while they have some depth, they really don't have a bell cow running back, and that's what he gave them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, turning to the defensive side of the ball, we know that on the 4th of July, young man C.J. Wilson was involved in a similar accident as Jean-Pierre Paul, where a firework incident cost him 2 fingers. And he went on and decided to retire so that he could actually focus on, making himself whole again. What are your thoughts on the situation that occurred with C.J. Wilson?
Well, it was tragic. I mean, anything like that could potentially end his career. CJ was a guy that was going to be struggling to try to make this roster, but that was his dream, and now he's going to have to at least take a year or so off. Maybe there's a possibility he comes back a year from now, but those were severe injuries. So, fortunately, the Bucs weren't counting on him very highly. He would have been a nice, addition to the team, but they do have some pretty established corners with Alteron Werner, who was in his first year last year with the Bucs, came from Tennessee, was an All-Pro, didn't play particularly well, only had 2 interceptions last year, and then Jonathan Banks, who's proved to be a pretty good corner in his own right that they've had now for 3 or 4 years. And then they added, on defense, a bunch of guys that are familiar with Lovie Smith's Tampa 2 system. In fact, many of them played for Lovie or Rod Marinelli. And you're looking at guys like Chris Conte, who's, when healthy, has been effective. He comes from the Bears. Henry Melton, who played for Lovie with the Bears and in Dallas under Rod Marinelli as a defensive tackle, has played in this system, as well as Bruce Carter, who had 5 interceptions as a linebacker, and will probably be the Mike linebacker for the Bucs starting out this year as Mason Foster goes to Chicago. So some changes on defense, but with guys that are very familiar with the scheme, know how to execute it, and it should be good additions.
Very good, very good. He is Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, the beat writer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, really quick, before I let you go, do the Bucs have anything special planned for this 40th year anniversary?
I'm not sure. You mentioned the slogan. That's something they're going to carry through the organization, the Seize the Day, whether that's with ticket sales, community service, or what have you. I know they'll probably have a patch on their jersey and things like that.
How about a patch over their eye? That would be really gangster.
Yeah, that'd be Raider-like, right? If they could do that. The way they've played, they probably need a patch over both eyes. But, I really think that it's a franchise that has a good fan base that they've lost because they've had 4 straight losing seasons. They haven't, been in the playoffs since 2007. And their last playoff win was Super Bowl 37. That was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's one that it's a football area, obviously, here in the South. A lot of college football, and a guy like Jameis Winston, if he can have success at the pro level, it'd be good to see them fill up Raymond James Stadium again.
Absolutely. Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. You can follow him on Twitter at NFL Stroud. Rick, thank you so much for joining the show, and we look forward to talking to you once the season kicks off.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, man. Great stuff right there from Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Tampa Bay Buccaneers training camp actually gets underway Saturday, and so we'll keep you posted on what's going on down there with all the developments with Jameis Winston, the first overall pick in this year's NFL draft. Don't forget, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter at Sports Kings Live, and you can always shoot us an email, sportskingslive@gmail.com. We'll be right back after these words.
People are always looking to invest in a good opportunity. So what if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change called Better Futures. With your investment, it helps students like me go to college.